What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm here to bring you 5 very dumb fantasy football picks for 2024. Now, I will preface this by saying it's early. It's still June as I'm recording this video, so we're not even into July yet. ADPs will change. But at the current market, at their current prices, there is 5 players that stood out to me where I went, I think that'd be really dumb if you took them at that price. So without further ado, let's just kick it off with my number 1 player on this list, and that is Malik Nabers, wide receiver 24, 43rd player overall. I just don't get it. I mean, what are we doing here? Right? Daniel Jones is the quarterback for the Giants. And in his, 4 or 5 year stint as the starting quarterback for the Giants, have we ever had any fantasy relevant receiver in that receiving core? I don't think the answer is yes. We've had flashes of Sterling Shepard whenever he's healthy and Darius Slayton, sure. But he's never manifested any receiver into any type of consistent fantasy weapon for us. Now, Malik Nabers could be the exception because obviously he's really good. He was drafted, top 10 in the NFL draft. He's a super explosive player. But I just have no faith in this situation at all. I'm a fantasy manager that really prefers to take a player over the situation, right? I'd rather take a good player in a bad situation over a not so good player in a great situation, right? I'm all about the player's talent. But I don't think we're at a point with wide receiver 24 where Malik Nabers has to be your choice or you failed, right? Like, I'm looking at ADPs right now, and if I go down the list, these are the players going around Malik Nabers. So right before Nabers we'll start at 38. Pick 38 is Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Rashad White, then Malik Nabers. And then the players that go right after him: Trey McBride, James Cook, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews, Keenan Allen, Anthony Richardson, George Pickens, Dalton Kincaid, CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Walker, Tank Dell, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Alvin Kamara. I mean, those are really well-established players that are going after Malik Nabers. I just don't think there's a risk worth taking with Nabers. I think he can have big boom weeks that will save you, but I just don't think you're going to be able to play Malik Nabers with any kind of consistency at all in 2024. Next up is another receiver for me, and that is going to be Drake London, who's the wide receiver 12, 18th player overall. And it's kind of another thing where, like, what are we doing with this guy? And not that I think Drake London is a bad player, because he's definitely shown flashes, and he's had one of the, if not the worst, quarterback rooms the past 2 seasons. But look at it this way. We've never had Drake London go for more than 75 catches. His max is 72 in a season. Over 900 yards just once, and it was barely over, so he's never been over 1,000 yards, and he's never had more than 4 touchdowns in a season. Kirk Cousins is obviously a good to great quarterback in the NFL, but is coming off a very devastating injury. Like, a torn Achilles is nothing to mess around with. Now, who knows if it's going to affect him as much because he's a quarterback and that's not very mobile anyway. But there's other guys going around Drake London who are really good. It's the same thing with, like, Malik Nabers, what I just said. There's other players going around him that are just proven and better. Nico Collins finished as the wide receiver 9 last year. Deebo Samuel's the wide receiver 12. Brandon Ayuk was the wide receiver 14. Michael Pittman, wide receiver 15. Mike Evans, wide receiver 5. So there's all these players who have kind of proven to be wide receiver 1s or fringe guys, but instead we're going to take the absolute shot on Drake London to just be this guy that he hasn't proven it yet in a kind of a, I would say an iffy situation with Kirk Cousins, where we could just take more proven guys in everyone I just named. Not saying it's impossible for Drake London to go out and put up 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns. It's easily doable. Well, maybe not easily, but it could be done. But didn't I just see Nico Collins and Brandon Ayuk and Mike Evans just do that this past season? Why not just take them and play it safer instead of taking the major risk with Drake London? All right, and then the third player, if you want to call it a player, it's more of a group of player that I want to talk about is any early tight end. I think is a big mistake for fantasy football. I think it's the biggest mistake you can make year in and year out. I'll put a graphic on the screen that you'll see, but the graphic is explaining last year in 2023, these were the top 10, and then I threw in 3 extra ADP tight ends. These were the top 10 tight ends being taken in fantasy drafts. The top 8 guys, so from Travis Kelce all the way down to Pat Freiermuth, did not finish above where they were drafted, at or above. So, for instance, Travis Kelce was the tight end 1, the 6th player overall in drafts, right? So he was roughly a first round pick, or a mid to late first round pick, I should say. He finished as the tight end 3. Mark Andrews was injured, so we'll say, George Kittle. George Kittle was the tight end 4, 50th player overall, finished as the tight end 5. So none of those top 8 guys even returned their value and finished where you drafted them ADP-wise. Where you get a positional advantage, and we say it, that's the reason you take the tight end, is because you want to say, oh, I got Travis Kelce, so I'm definitely better than you at tight end. I'm definitely better than my opponent this week. But that didn't work out at all last year. All 8 of you suckers who took a tight end early, you guys completely whiffed. You missed. Now, you can say that George Kittle wasn't a miss as he finished as the tight end 5, and TJ Hawkinson pretty much returned it. But the big thing is this. Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Cole Kmet, Sam Laporta, and Jake Ferguson all crushed their ADPs. And these guys went pick 82 or later. They were the tight end 9 or later. They're basically free at the end of your drafts. Why take the shot on an early tight end when you can just take a guy late and hope he shoots for the upside? Because if you take one of these late guys, that frees you from taking a, Travis Kelce or Trey McBride in the 3rd, 4th round, when you can take another good receiver or running back. And to top it all off, last year, the wide receiver 24 finished with 183 fantasy points in half PPR leagues. Only one singular tight end finished above that number, 175 points actually. So I gave it a little bit of a buffer. Only one tight end, and that was Sam Laporta. Who was the wide receiver 24 in half PPR leagues? Comment down below. Let me know who you think it is, because you'll never guess it. It was Jakobi Meyers. So right now, every single tight end that you drafted early was just another Jakobi Meyers for your fantasy team. I think you should just wait on tight end. Screw it. Take 2 at the end of your draft and shoot for upside. There are still guys going super late this year in the ADP game. I mean, if we pull tight ends here, we have guys who finished great last year. Evan Ingram is going at pick 70. George Kittle is pick 77. Jake Ferguson, 89. David Njoku, who's the tight end, I think it was 6 or 7 last year. He's going at tight end 10, pick 96. 96. He's barely even in the 8th or 9th round. He's barely there. So take him. Don't take an early tight end. I beg you, don't do it. I think it's the dumbest pick you can make, because if he's not Sam Laporta, if he's not blowing it out of the water, scoring 200 fantasy points, you wasted your pick. All right, and then now let's talk about a quarterback. And that quarterback is going to be CJ Stroud, QB6, 54th overall. Now, this isn't a shot at all in the slightest at CJ Stroud, because Stroud is really good. He's a very talented player. I was very impressed with him as a rookie, and I think he's just going to go on to do bigger and better things. What we have to understand from the quarterback position is if he's not going to be a runner, he has to throw for 32 plus touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. And last year, CJ Stroud finished with 23. I'm not knocking the guy, but that means he has to throw basically 10 more touchdowns in a season to really bring back top 5 quarterback value. And last year, there was only 4 quarterbacks in the league that threw for 30 touchdowns. Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff. Those are the only 4 quarterbacks that threw for 30 plus passing touchdowns last year. Shocking, right? No Mahomes, no Josh Allen, no Jalen Hurts, no Lamar, none of those guys. So if he's not going to be a rusher, if he's not going to be running around and getting you 500 rushing yards and some touchdowns, he has to be elite through the air. He has to be 4,000 plus yards and over 30 touchdowns. He has to be, or he will not return value at pick 54 overall, which is like a 4th or 5th round pick. Why take Stroud when you can take other guys like Joe Burrow and Kyler Murray are going back to back at pick 71 and 72? Guys who have been top, 6 to 7 options before in their past. Jordan Love is 78. He was the QB5 last year. I mean, he was one of the 4 guys who threw for 30 plus passing touchdowns. Players going around Stroud's ADP that aren't quarterbacks are Dalton Kincaid, Keenan Allen, George Pickens, Joe Mixon, Tank Dell, Kenneth Walker, T. Higgins, Christian Kirk, Alvin Kamara, aka all super good players to own in fantasy football. So I just don't think the risk is there with CJ Stroud. You're not getting to rushing, and you have to really get a truly great season. Is he capable? Of course. Everyone's going to tell you because of how good Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs is, and now Joe Mixon's there. Of course, the narrative is going to be there, and I think his ADP is just going to rise. But don't get fooled. CJ Stroud, really good player. Is he great for fantasy football? I'd rather just take Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, or Jordan Love later instead of taking a risk on CJ Stroud being inflated. All right, and the last guy we're going to talk about is Los Angeles running back Kyren Williams. RB7, 20th pick overall. Now, Kyren Williams had an awesome, unbelievable run last year. Had over like 1,100 rushing yards in 12 games. It's nuts. Averaged 95 rushing yards a game. There is just a little bit of red flags to me that kind of stand out with Kyren Williams, right? Are we not concerned at all that he's only played in 10 and 12 games in 2 years? And he's not healthy right now. He's been injured. I believe he has a foot injury. The Rams drafted Blake Corum out of Michigan, which I think is just kind of no coincidence. I think they realize we need some more talent in this backfield. Maybe Kyren Williams isn't able to just handle the workload. I mean, it's 2 seasons back to back of him not being able to handle it. Now, injuries are fluky. Maybe he comes out and he plays all 16 or 17 games. But when I see evidence of him not being able to do it in back-to-back seasons and not even being healthy in the offseason, they go out and draft one of the, top prospects at the running back position, one of the best rushers in the nation in college last year, and Blake Corum. I just get scared, man. And I've seen the Rams flip running backs from, you have so many people. You have literally from Todd Gurley down to Darrell Henderson to Cam Akers to who even knows who they had last year filling in. It was just a cluster. I think Kyren Williams is a fine player, but he couldn't find the field in 2022. He barely played. Cam Akers was the starter to start last year and then got, kind of benched because he sucked. And then they just played Kyren Williams. He couldn't even beat the terrible Cam Akers, who's probably going to be out of the NFL next year. Kyren Williams going as the RB7, 20th pick overall. It's a risky pick. And I think there's a lot of good running backs going right after him. Travis Etienne's for one. I've been talking about him in all my videos. Travis Etienne last year put up 1,500 yards in back-to-back seasons. Why take the risk on Kyren Williams, a guy who just proven to me he can't stay healthy? They drafted a running back to probably help spell some touches. And I just don't trust the Sean McVay rushing game. I trust it for who's the starter, but I cannot be certain it's going to be Kyren Williams. You can say I'm dumb for this, but I've been burned one too many times by these hot running backs who aren't the most talented, but are just in good situations. I'm taking talented players. And Kyren Williams, to me, is not that talented. I think he's fine, but I wouldn't call him special. All right, so those are 5 dumb fantasy football picks for 2024. Now, this is a hard list to make because are you really dumb if you make these picks? No. But they're risks I'm just not willing to take. It's ADPs that are inflated. It's players who have to be at the tip top of their performance, of their peak to really hit their value. And it's players I'm not willing to dive in on for 2024. If you liked the video, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for plenty of content. Like I said, we're still in June. It's June 26th as I'm recording this, so we have plenty of time in the off season to record more videos, get them your way. All of July, all of August, fantasy football is coming up soon, so stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.